broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for spending this time with us and for submitting questions when you registered. Your questions helped shape the session today, and we will be addressing many of those as we go. I am Mallory Price, Training Coordinator at Shipley, and I will be moderating. Today's webinar will be recorded and posted on our website by tomorrow for replay. You can view the whole presentation there. You can find it under the Resources tab at www.shipleywins.com. If you have questions during the webinar, you can enter those in the Questions tab of your control panel. We'll try to get to those at the end of the session as time permits. Today, Brad Douglas, Executive Vice President of Global Strategy at Shipley, will facilitate this session. He has solicited input from several business development leaders and practitioners for this topic. Today's topic is agility in business winning. So, Brad, with that, I will put the webinar in your capable hands.
Okay, thank you, Mallory, and thank you all for setting aside some time today to join us. And I apologize, Kelson Forsgren was going to join us and participate today, but he's unable to make this session today, and so it will be Mallory and myself. And again, thank you for investing this time. And this is a great topic. This is a topic that has come to us from several of you, several of our clients, and you know, this isn't all about the big A, capital A, Agile. This is about agility and being flexible and
Brad, I think I lost you. I can't hear you anymore.
agility in our business winning approach not only has to do with the actual work we do as far as qualifying opportunities and making pursuit decisions and planning and developing a capture plan and a proposal, but agility means getting rid of all of the waste and trying to get rid of redundancies in the way we do work and repetitiveness that drains us. So not only do we need to work more efficiently and better and smarter and more nimble, but we need to look for ways to cut out the redundancy and the waste and really try to minimize that. So as you know, today, at least in the United States, and I know we've got some folks from outside of the US, but today is Groundhog Day. And you know, I don't know where you are and where you live and what you reside, what the groundhog did for you today, but I hope we can look forward to a really nice spring and enjoy the beautiful weather spring brings. And Groundhog Day, you know, it has different results in different places, and hope it worked out well for you today on Groundhog Day. All right, so what are we going to cover? First, I want to just mention this quote over here. Been around forever. It's not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And isn't that true in our profession, in business winning, business development? So here's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what is agility, and we're going to talk a little bit about Agile, big A, capital A, versus Agile, little a, versus agility, and what those all mean. There's a huge movement, as we know, especially in design, development, and engineering, in Agile design and development, and that's working its way into our work as business developers. You know, how do we align Agile as a methodology, a mindset into our work, and exercise agility. So business winning, we're going to talk about business winning baseline and what that has to do with agility. Early phases, we'll go through the early phases of a business winning framework. We're going to talk about the later phases, proposal planning, proposal development, and the all-important reviews and the learning that takes place that help with our agility, help us to be more flexible and able to change and adapt to circumstances. And then as we go, Mallory, please feel free to interrupt. I'll try to pause periodically to see if we have some questions that have come in, and we'll address those. So if you have questions, go ahead and submit those, and we'll try to address some of those at the end today. All right, what we did is in advance, we captured a few of your questions upon registration. As you know, when you registered for this webinar, you had a chance to submit questions. So we compartmentalized a few of those and consolidated some of those. And these were some of the questions that came in. I keep hearing about Agile, and in this case, I'm going to assume this person meant capital A, the Agile. Can you explain how it's relevant to proposal preparation? So we're going to address that. Great question. Again, isn't Agile more of a way to work and not necessarily a process? Interesting question. We'll try to address that as well. And again, you can see a lot of these questions, because of the topic of the webinar, agility, a lot of these questions came in about Agile, you know, the mindset and the philosophy of work. So here was another one. Where does a Scrum Master fit within proposal development? So we went out to industry and some of the best practitioners out there, and we asked for their input on, you know, where does a Scrum Master fit in? How can I be flexible in managing a proposal while still holding my team accountable? Interesting. Okay, how can we be flexible yet hold people to schedules, to milestones that we expect to be accomplished? Love this question. Is Shipley's process considered Agile? Okay, we'll try to answer that straight up and talk about that. Can you share some ideas for bringing more agility into our proposal process? So good questions, good, and again, we brought several questions together to try to compartmentalize those, so to speak. So we're going to do our best to shape our discussion around many of these questions. So thank you. Thank you for those of you that took time to do that in advance.
Hey, Brad.
Yes, please.
Just wanted to let you know that Kelson was able to join us, so he is here with us as well.
Fantastic. Kelson, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay. You'll need to speak up. We could barely hear you on that one, but good to have you with us. All right. So thanks again for submitting those questions, and let's go. Let's talk about, what do we mean agility in business development? Because of your question and the way that the topic of this webinar pointed toward capital A, big A, Agile, let's talk about what that means. So agility, if we think of agility as a noun, it means the ability to move quickly and easily. All right, so can we do that within our proposal development teams, our business development, our capture teams? Do we have the ability to move quickly and easily, or are there all kinds of roadblocks, you know, and bureaucracy or things that get in the way? Agility as a noun. Agility as an adjective. Well, it's pretty similar. The ability to think and understand quickly. Okay. Are we thinking quickly and understanding, and do we have that ability? Agile, the able to think and understand quickly. Boy, we're seeing a lot of commonality here, right? Think, understand quickly, easily. big A, capital A, Agile, defined. It's defined in many places like this. It's relating to or denoting a philosophy of project management used specifically for software development. Division of tasks are into short phases of work. I want you to kind of keep this definition in mind as we talk about agility in business development. This webinar is not about software development or design. This is about business development. So how can we maybe align some of our business development activities with this concept of agile project management and software development? Remember, see this in blue here, the division of tasks into short phases of work. Okay, agility and agile defined. Capital A, big A, agile. Ultimately, agile is a mindset informed by the Agile Manifesto's values and principles. I'm gonna go over those really quickly. People ask for it, so we're gonna spend a little time on this. What are those Agile values and principles that we should be subscribing to if we're working in that environment? Those values and principles provide guidance on how to create and respond to change and how to deal with uncertainty. All right, a lot of us are in the business development area of either capture management, sales enablement, proposal development, proposal planning, proposal management. We certainly know what uncertainty is about. You know, when our customer changes course, they move their deadlines. Agile is the ability to create and respond to change. It's a way of dealing with and ultimately succeeding in an uncertain and a turbulent environment. And I know some of you are clapping your hands right now saying, yes, this describes our proposal environment. It is turbulent and it is uncertain. Kelson, have you ever seen otherwise where, you know, a proposal development team isn't in a little bit of a state of uncertainty and turbulence?
I've seen some cases where it's been smoother than others, and that's probably just a comparative factor, you know, where you see people that have been doing this a long time and have practices down. But by and large, most people are in a stressful situation when dealing with proposals.
That's right. All right, so there we have a little explanation of big A, capital A, bolded A, Agile. All right, these values in the manifesto. This may be brand new for some of you, I don't know. But in the Agile Manifesto, for those that are working in that type of an environment, they publish and subscribe to 4 key values. And we're not going to dwell a ton on these. I just want to point these out. Individuals and interactions over process and tools. That's part of the manifesto. That's part of the value. We've got to value people. We've got to value the individuals and the interactions over processes and tools. Interesting value as it relates to an agile approach to working. Working the solution over comprehensive documentation. Sometimes, you know, if we're not in an agile work environment, all we're focused on are those details. You know, the documentation, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be elegant. We want to focus a little more in an agile environment on working the solution instead of the documentation behind the solution. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. How important is that as we try to shape a value proposition and our messaging in our proposals? Responding to change over following a plan. All right, this is such an important value. You know, a plan is important, but a plan must be somewhat flexible. As things change, the competitive landscape, the customer acquisition process, whatever it is, we've got to be able to respond to that change. All right, now we could spend the rest of the hour today on these 12 Agile principles, but we're not going to because you can go back and print this off or watch this at a later date. But there's 12 Agile principles. What we've done is we've taken those and aligned those a little bit because of your questions and your inquiries into business winning, the business development area. And so I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly, and you can come back to those at a later time. But this is so important, this first one. Principle number 1, we place the customer at the center of all business winning activities. Customer focused, what matters to them? It's important that our solutions be the best, that we have strengths, but they have to be focused on what the customer is wanting, what they're after. Principle number 2, be proactive in identifying and embracing changing customer requirements and perspectives throughout the life cycle. 3, deliver proposal content incrementally in shorter bursts rather than a single larger high-risk delivery. The last thing we want to do, if we're developing a proposal over a 2-week, a 30-day, a 60, a 90-day, a longer period of time, we can't slow the boat. We've got to develop and review that content as it becomes available to us in these shorter bursts of time, constantly, regularly reviewing, improving, revising, and making it stronger. Maintain close, regular contact with internal and external stakeholders, of course. Ensure that business winning teams have the working environment and the support they need to get the results they're after. Prioritize regular face-to-face or virtual business winning discussions over other forms of communication. Real-time, face-to-face, and I mean many times virtual, using the tools we have to have real-time discussions, regular. We're going to talk about those different types of reviews. Winning profitable and deliverable work is the primary measure of our success. Again, apply shorter bursts, sprints with fixed milestones to support the pace. Review content in parallel. Do we ever sit back and say, oh, well, we can't review my section for 3 more days until a team review is scheduled? No. Or we can only review the management section, the management volume at this time. We can do this work in parallel with one another. Keep solution and proposal design as modular as possible. This is what I talked about at the outset. I kind of wanted to go on record as saying remove business development activities that don't either increase our probability of win or reduce organizational risk or cost. So get rid of the redundancy and the waste. Encourage high-performing teams to self-organize. And finally, hold regular lessons learned reviews, iteration, so to speak, in using terminology of Agile, as needed at each milestone and during regular intervals. Okay, those are the 12 Agile principles, tweaked, altered a little bit to fit within what we're talking about today. And that is business winning. So this was one of those questions, I believe, Mallory, that was submitted early. Someone wanted to know, I think, where does a Scrum Master or how does Scrum fit in? So here's a response. Scrum within big A, capital A, Agile, is how one manages the project. So this is a quote now, whereas Agile is an orientation, so it's a way we work, Scrum is a specific methodology for how one manages the project. It provides a process for how to identify the work, who will do the work, how it will be done, and when it will be completed. Now, if that doesn't sound like a capture plan with a good action plan, or if that doesn't sound like a proposal management plan, where we have established key deliverables, key milestones, who's responsible, when it's due, then what does? So this is completely relevant to our environment as business winning professionals. So this all comes from someone at Northeastern University who is a Scrum expert. In Scrum project management, the project team, led by a project manager, consists of the product owner, Scrum Master, and other cross-functional team members. So we won't go into this in detail. That's probably another topic for another day, but think, boy, that kind of sounds like a proposal manager to me. You know, someone who interfaces with the solution team, who interfaces with others, the product owner, cross-functional team members, SMEs, and technical experts. Okay, now there's another term in big A, capital A, Agile, that we hear about a lot, sprints. What is a sprint? A sprint in Scrum, so a sprint is a term within the Scrum methodology. A sprint in Scrum project management is a short period of time where in a development team, or think of proposal development in many of our cases, works to complete specific tasks, milestones, and deliverables. So if you happen to be a proposal manager and you happen to be on this webinar, boy, you know, don't we hold people accountable to specific tasks, milestones, and deliverables? Sprints also refer to as iterations. Essentially break our project proposal, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever time we have, into digestible blocks of time in which smaller goals can be accomplished. That's what is meant by a sprint within this Agile work environment. Should we apply some of this or most of this in our business winning framework? Of course. This has been taught, this has been facilitated for years and years and years, this concept of we have to manage our pursuits, our capture planning, our proposal planning, our proposal development into specific tasks, milestones, and deliverables where we hold people accountable. And yes, we should be iterating as we go. Remember, it's all about managing change. Okay, so what is this business development lifecycle? What is this business winning flow, if you will? Many of you are familiar with the baseline life cycle that Shipley has put out there and documented. We've always encouraged industry to adapt this and make this their own, but it flows something like this, and it's very hard to show in a one-dimensional screen, computer screen, how iterative this life cycle is, but it requires agility and flexibility, as you see in the header here, where we go through these phases of competing for work, qualifying for deals, qualifying for opportunities, putting together a capture plan, a proposal plan, and always having that feedback loop. As we do that in business winning, the solution team, whether, if they're working in an agile environment, fantastic, but the solution development has to proceed along the same path. We have to keep maturing and evolving and adapting and changing the solution design as we go through the business development process. So Kelson, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to walk us through a few of these. What we've done is just grouping some of these business winning phases with a couple of the key action items that we ought to think about as we go through. So this first slide here is talking about agility in those early phases, if you will, of business winning.
Yeah, so the activities that we've talked about, the need to, based on timing, break things down into manageable pieces so we can get some decisions made, deliverables put forward. That applies as well in these first two segments here. We're talking about market segmentation. There are activities that we look at for what market we're going to target for going after opportunities, and then how are we going to position ourselves in front of those potential clients or that potential market to be able to attract them to our services. So it's part of and that's not the only time that we do that, but we can continually assess those activities going forward. But there are times where we start to identify who we're going to target and who we're going to go seek to work with. So we look at not only who we might go after in the marketplace, but also who might be our competitors, who might be potential partners, and we continue to look for opportunities to see the best way forward for providing the best solution, the best team to our clients or our customers. And we continue to moving into the next couple of phases here. We're looking at ways in which we can qualify opportunities, also called opportunity assessment, and then getting into capture opportunities where we have identified something specific to go after, and then we start doing a deeper dive in that space. So again, we're looking at how we're relating within the market, how we're competing within the market. We're going to continue doing that assessment. We identify specific opportunities to actually target and go after. You can see with some of the arrows, excuse me, the diamonds or the triangles pointing down. This is all prior to a customer maybe submitting a draft RFP. So there are activities that we are doing and trying to get consensus on what specific opportunities we should take on. As we've identified them and as we continue to potentially work with the customer on defining what they need, what they need to do, we start looking at planning the proposal and developing the proposal. Activities that are time sensitive with regard to the customer, but we're looking at the activities that we've been doing before, decisions being made, solutions being identified, put together, messaging put together as to how this might best support the customer. And then we're doing these regular, as it says here, check-ins, these potential sprint groupings that we could do to help us make sure we're on the right track. We're reviewing, we're customizing, we're informing, we're developing, and then we hold larger milestone reviews at specific points to be able to make sure that what we have currently is enough to advance to the next stage, the next sprint, and the next review that we're going for in our response. So all throughout this process, you've seen left to right, there are activities, defined tasks that we need to do, getting to some deliverables so decisions can be made, and as we continue developing through our business process.
Great, thank you for that. And so important that we have this flexibility, we adapt to change. Most of us are in competitive environments where it requires that we be nimble, and so we've just hit on a few of these key milestones and touch points in a baseline business winning framework. And what we encourage you to do, obviously, this is a framework. You may be in a situation where your competitive landscape is fairly simple and not very complex. And fine, adapt and adjust your life cycle, your approach to make it fit your environment. Now, Kelson, thank you for that. That was a really good overview. And you mentioned two types of reviews, really, and this gets back, I think, to one of the questions, Mallory, that I think we consolidated early on, was about how can we be more flexible in managing our proposal teams while still being holding people accountable, I think was the way the question was phrased. So here are some ideas, and actually our next webinar that is in, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks from now, we specifically are addressing this because it's become such a topic out there in industry. What is the difference between these two types of reviews, these daily or routine check-ins that Kelson called it, a check-in review, versus what a lot in industry call these more color team reviews? And so there's probably more than two, but there's basically two types of reviews, and that are these short, sometimes informal, most of the time actually, very informal huddles, sprint, whatever we call it, where we're doing a check-in with our team. If someone's assigned to a certain section of the proposal and there's a 3-page bogey that they're going after, they're trying to fit the content within 3 pages, there's a certain strategy message we're trying to convey, we shouldn't be waiting until the next team review or color team review. If we're the proposal man, we should be checking in as we go and learning and evolving as we go. That's daily reviews. That's what we mean. And then there's key milestone reviews. Many in industry call these the color team reviews that many of us are familiar with. So let's touch on those just briefly. This concept of daily stand-up reviews, status checks, check-in, whatever we want to call them within our environment. In the process of this sprint planning, right, going through these phases that Kelson talked about, these should be short but thorough check-in status meetings. We should be reviewing the assigned tasks, commitments, and status of what our team member has been assigned to. Are there any issues? I like to call these speed bumps. Anything getting in the way of meeting the deadline and producing a quality deliverable. Determine the path forward and schedule. Do they need additional support? Is there some reuse content or material we could point them to? Establish commitments, or sometimes reestablish commitments and deadlines. They may have shifted, they may have changed. Just constantly collaborate. And then what we're trying to do in these regular routine stand-up checks, we call it stand-up because they shouldn't be very long, and you don't want to sit down or you'll get comfortable. But prepare for any upcoming team milestone reviews, more of a significant review. We're going to talk about that in the next webinar in a few weeks as well.
Hey, Brett,
yes, please.
Also about that is, again, we're talking about accountability, and we don't want to just have people accountable at the major milestone reviews. These daily check-ins help people on the team be accountable for tasks that they're doing. If they're falling behind, then we can all help them and troubleshoot. I just think it's a great way to make sure we're actually completing items, helping people complete commitments so that we're ready for these larger reviews that we'll talk about. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So the daily stand-up checks reviews. Now, how does Agile and these project stages we're talking about, big A, capital A, Agile, that working environment, there's a concept there called stages, right? Where in your design and development work, your solutioning, you should be doing that in project stages. Well, this comes right out of, the Agile methodology, these stages. Stage 1, stage 2. I'm not going to go through these. We may cover these more in a few weeks in the next webinar. But these are the Agile project development stages. And here what we're doing is just showing there's pretty good alignment. If we follow a business winning life cycle, there's pretty good alignment between this stage 1, where the product owner, let's call it proposal manager, identifies the product vision. What are we trying to accomplish? Well, a capture manager, the opportunity owner, saying we're sharing the vision. What's our win strategy? So we'll go through more of this in a future webinar, but just trying to show here how aligned these key milestone color team reviews are with the various stages if you are working in a, quote, big A, capital A, Agile environment. And really important to Agile is the lessons learned reviews. And a lessons learned review shouldn't just be done at the end of a pursuit. Whether, at the end of a proposal or a bid, an award decision, we should be doing regular, consistent lessons learned in those regular stand-ups that we talked about. So color team, these more milestone, I'm going to call them milestone reviews. Remember, Agile's a mindset, right? So what we try to do is we want to agree on an approach to these reviews. We're going to have the daily routine reviews. We're going to have these key milestone reviews. Many of us call them color team reviews, and retrospective reviews, using an Agile term, lessons learned. Tailor and scale our approach based on the complexity of the pursuit, the value. We need to be flexible, nimble, manage parallel tasks, identify the right personnel and the right outcomes for each review. There are really good technology and collaboration tools out there now that we should be leveraging. Constantly iterate and learn from each review and evolve and align. Make sure we are aligned with our solution design and solution development team. So we'll go a little more in depth in these color team reviews again on a future webinar, but it's so important. Those daily check-ins and those color team reviews. And this simply, we wanted to share, consistency is really important along with the flexibility. If we are the proposal manager, if we're the capture manager, if we're the solution lead, we have to take the time and prepare. We've got to be prepared to facilitate these reviews, whether it's the short, just in time stand-up reviews or the more formal team reviews at key milestones. And the key is we learn from each one. So yes, adapt, be flexible, but also we've got to be super consistent. So we've got to be prepared. We've got to get the right people engaged. If we need to adapt and tweak the schedule, we do that. We facilitate. We have to be really good facilitators. And regularly, routinely debrief, learn, support one another. Make sure we're archiving materials, tracking recommendations, making sure all of them are adjudicated and taken care of. So being consistent while yet being flexible in our approach is really, really important. We want to keep them regular, positive, and constructive. So we've mentioned a couple of times the importance, and I think this sometimes gets overlooked as we talk about business winning and capture planning or proposal development. But this concept that we've got to align our approach to our solution team, sometimes we kind of overlook that, and we don't talk about it a lot, but we have to. If we're going to show agility and be flexible in how we do our business win, our proposals, we've got to know what's going on this solution development side. So what is the overall solution? What's overall being developed and worked on? What's the technical solution? How's that coming? Are we really aligning to the requirement? The management solution, past performance. We should be thinking about this well in advance of the actual proposal submittal. The price solution. Are we competitively priced? Are we priced to compete, priced to win? And then what's becoming more and more important to a lot of our customers, especially those of us who might be working with government, is what's our risk management solution? So as business winning professionals, leaders, contributors, practitioners, we've got to be aligned in our approach with our solution team. If they're working in an agile solution development, solution design environment, then we've got to try and kind of align with that and know what's going on and collaborate with them. So these facilitated solution development sessions, we really need to be engaged with. We need to know what's going on so that we can gather our effective message. All right, Kelson, any thoughts on aligning our business winning approach and activities, milestones with solution development that you've experienced?
That's another key area that can do that kind of iteration and having those kinds of checkpoints. And you mentioned it before, that if you're the solution lead, to be able to leverage that same type of iterative process for being able to check on status of things. And occasionally, I've seen some of these things being, some of these solutions being done in parallel, as they typically would be, but also the types of reviews done in parallel. So there's a price track that's separate from the technical track, separate from the past performance track. But again, the planning can all work out well to where each of those tracks is getting to the end results that are necessary. And then the milestone reviews kind of helped to make sure everything was in alignment across the tracks. There was still work that the proposal manager would do, making sure that everybody's aware going along that way. But for very large deals, that worked out to be pretty well. That worked pretty well, and it kept things in more manageable chunks rather than everything going down the same pipeline.
Boy, thanks for bringing that out. And I don't think I did a very sound job of that. The fact that in those key milestone reviews, that this solution review has to be done at the same time, and we need to be completely aligned. Thank you. We mentioned there on that the iterative, flexible approach to solution design. The same thing goes with this other key element of business winning, and that is our price to win. And I know many of you know this, but I want to reinforce this, that as we go through evolving our pursuits, at the center, going back to that number one principle of Agile, right, that we showed you those 12 principles. What was number one? Customer focus. The customer has to be at the center. So as we think about our probability of win, that's the term here, Pwin, probability of win, At the heart of that, and our ability to be flexible, is we have to know the customer. We need to make sure they know us. And is there anything we can do during the pursuit, ethically, honestly, above board, to influence the customer to maybe prefer us and our solution? This is all part of agility when it comes to managing our Pwin and our price to win. It's all part of it. So know the customer, know who's competing, what's our competitive position, what are our capabilities, can we discriminate, and are we priced competitively? What's our value proposition? These are the 4 cornerstones, if you will, of our probability of win. Know the customer, assess the competitors, define our capabilities, solutioning, right? Can we discriminate? Is there anything in our solution that really makes us different and better in the mind of the customer? And what about price to win? Have we effectively evolved that? Have we been agile in the way we evolve our price to win based on what we learn about the customer and our position? Okay, so Pwin, probability of win, should be at the heart of everything we do. So applying this mindset to the Shipley framework, that was another one of the questions, Mallory, was is the Shipley framework considered agile? Boy, I hope so. Built into that standard basic Shipley framework, which is just that. It's not a framework. I mean, it's not a complete definition of how we all ought to do it. It's a framework to build on. But yes, there are milestones built in, there are checkpoints built in, and it has to be consistent, disciplined, and scalable process, milestone decision gates, regular, consistent, and iterative reviews. We have to engage the right people. Scalability. This is not one size fits all. How many activities and tasks and milestones and checkpoints, that completely depends on your organization, your structure, your culture, your competitive environment. The number and type of standard of reviews, it should be scalable, variable. We should get feedback and learn lessons at each step. The key factors we should include, do we have enough time to manage this pursuit? What about the size, risk, and value of the opportunity? How many people do we need to involve? How many resources? Do we have a commitment from leadership to continue the pursuit? And we need to always focus on the customer and that win strategy. So this idea of applying agility, being flexible yet consistent, scalable yet consistent, is really, really important. So yes, this standard basic framework that many of you are familiar with, that is out there, this business winning life cycle with these phases Kelson mentioned, these sprints, these check-in points, these decisions, these milestones, it completely requires agility. We have to be adaptable and flexible to change. So with that, Mallory, I'm going to pause. Are there any questions that have come in that we have just a couple of minutes? Any questions that you want to put out there that maybe Kelson and I could address?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple. So here's one. And Brad, I'll ask you first, and Kelson, if you have any ideas, chime in after. So we respond to quick turn proposal requests. Do these ideas apply to our situation even though it's quick?
Oh, excellent question. I would say yes. Even if we're in by quick turn, this questioner might be referring to like task order responses where we only have 7 days, or things come at us and we didn't anticipate them. Regardless of whether it's a 30, 60, 90-day response or a 5 to 7 day response, yes, we should be doing at least some of these quality check-ins to make sure that we're on target, we're customer focused, we're compliant, we're answering the mail, and we're in complete agreement on what we're proposing. So even in a quick turn environment, you've got to build in a couple of checkpoints. They could be somewhat informal, but you can't skip them. You know, we talk about on these larger pursuits a red team review, which is a review of the near final draft. We've at least got to do that, even on a quick turn. Kelson, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think even with the sprints that we were talking about and these huddles, they're probably even more important in a quick turn environment than they are in a longer term environment. And the reason for that is because of the need to keep information so connected with all of the different parts that letting it go an extra day may be critical or requiring a lot of time spent at the end of the process trying to get something fixed or get it done right. So being able to do those types of reviews, the daily stand-ups, quickly and concisely can really help advance things along throughout the process. So again, we're not looking at a total number of steps that people need to take and that you have to hit a certain number total. It's to make sure we're iterating properly on so that we'll be compliant, so we'll have the proper solution so that our messaging is correct, and having those checkpoints along the way before we get to some of the milestones that Brad talked about. It'll still be important, especially so in these short-term opportunities.
Good.
Okay, awesome. So Kelson, I will pose this next question to you first. So we mentioned staying connected with the solutions team during this webinar. Do you have any suggestions on how to get them involved sooner?
Well, best practice is to have the solutioning team involved as early as we can, especially back in capture activities that take place before a formal proposal is prepared. So if we have their attention at that point, as we're looking at what the customer might need and coming up with some ideas and options for solutions at that point, that's going to be most helpful to where as things, the solutioning can also iterate during that time before we get to an actual formal proposal process. So ideas about how to get them involved that far up front, if we have that kind of flexibility in our organization, will probably take some direction from senior management and flexibility on their end to invite key components of solutioning to be part of the discussions that we have during capture, even possibly interacting with the customer directly about some ideas for solutions. So if we organizationally can have them participate prior to proposal, and that's the best way forward, because then their solution is going to be better adapted to what the customer needs and what the customer's asking for. It'll be easier to work with them during the proposal process. Now that doesn't answer the question about how do we get them involved earlier, maybe in the proposal process. For that, I'd recommend getting them involved early in the kickoff meeting with the whole team, making sure that everybody knows what the customer is asking for and assignments being made, and then monitoring with these stand-ups and other sprints and huddles to be able to see how each of the different pieces of that proposal are being shaped and put together. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. You can see this dotted line here below this life cycle. You were exactly right. You know, just how do we get them involved early? That becomes a leader, like you said, cultural leadership management approach to doing business. We will say a disconnect we too often see in companies is this disconnect between business winning teams, business development teams, and the solution team. We figure we need to wait until that RFP comes out and we see the actual requirements to start thinking about a solution. And this diagram here, no, we should be really helping the customer shape the requirements, what they're looking for, what problems they're trying to solve, what mission they're trying to accomplish, clear back in here. And then is when we need to start thinking about our solution design. And it's going to help us in the bid, no bid decisions, the pursue, no pursue decisions if we do that. If we wait till the RFP comes out and the requirements to start thinking about solution, we are in big trouble. Any other questions, Mallory?
Okay, we do have one more that I think we have time for. Our proposals are mostly question answer type. Are color teams still important for our type of work?
Short answer, yes, because there's still an overarching strategy to the opportunity, even though we're constrained and all we can do is answer questions. There's still a win strategy, what we're trying to set ourselves apart with discriminators. So yes, an early review to talk about how are we going to win this? What's our theme? What's our strategy in the way we answer the questions? And then every single answer to every single question should be reviewed. Is it on point? Is it concise? Is it 100% accurate? If we skip those, even on a Q&A type proposal response, we're at risk of non-compliance or just losing. Well, Mallory, thank you. I think we're up against our time. And again, thank you all. Kelson, thank you for jumping on here. But just a summary of some of the key takeaways. We have to be nimble and flexible in our business winning approach. Implement these regular interval reviews often in person or at real time is what I'm saying, whether it's in person or virtual. Apply agility in our approach and timing of the reviews. What's the outcome of these reviews? Be consistent. There's an adage out there, you can only manage what you measure. If we're not, like Kelson brought up, accountability, if we're not holding folks accountable, it's going to be pretty hard to measure success. Track our Pwin, our probability of win. Make sure we're applying those lessons learned. Big A, capital A, bold A, agile methods, values, and principles, they are built into the Shipley framework, the baseline framework, but they need to be adapted. They need to be adapted to your individual situation. So thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to our next webinar. It looks like it's March. We're going to dive a little deeper into this idea of color team reviews and these all important stand-up reviews that keep us on our toes and on point. So Mallory, Kelson, thank you very much. All of you, thank you, and have a good rest of Groundhog's Day. And I hope Mr. or Mrs. Groundhog was kind to you wherever you are. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.